Hello, hi Bradley.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bradley Webster is a senior SEO lead at a company called Herd, and he's joining the podcast today to share his expertise in SEO and how he got into it as a career. So, to start us off, Bradley, could you please introduce yourself and explain how it is it that you got into SEO? That would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So, as you've just mentioned, I'm a senior SEO lead at a company called Herd. We do great performance marketing and web development, and we've got some nice brands under the belt. In terms of how I got into SEO, I've been in the industry around 7 years now, which has got me some great experience across content, technical, and PR.
Hmm.
But how I got into the industry, it probably sits a little bit before I even started working, really. So from an early age, I was always interested in creative and digital. Like I had a YouTube channel where I uploaded Pokemon videos when I was about 13.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. I enjoyed doing the graphics and the video editing and the recording and all of that. I didn't have many subscribers, but it was more like the enjoyment that I got out of it. Um, and even younger than that, I was putting together PowerPoints on like my favorite video games and my favorite TV series. So I always had that sort of creative, graphical, sort of digital interest from quite an early age.
Hmm.
Um, so then I went to college where I studied creative and digital media, art, creative writing. And all of those sort of work together to help me further that interest as well. Um, and then, interestingly, the natural route after college or sixth form is normally to university. That's sort of the next logical step. But I didn't necessarily know what my next step was. So I didn't necessarily want to sort of apply to university on a course that I wasn't sure about. So to me, the obvious choice was an apprenticeship because it sort of gives me a bit more time to understand what I'm working towards. And also, it didn't tie me into any debt. And it really got me that hands on experience. So I think it was through Sheffield City Council that I found an apprenticeship in digital marketing. At the time, I didn't know what marketing was. I just saw the word digital and I was like, you know what? That works. That's for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went to the interview. I put all my sort of creativeness down on the table, all of my art, my creative writing, my graphic design. And yeah, they seemed to enjoy it. And I got the apprenticeship. So that worked out really nicely.
Lovely. No, that's really cool. And like I say, it blends your creativity with the technical ability that you've got as well. It's sort of an ideal career choice for you to bring the two together, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. Excellent. And what would you say? So that is the current state of play at the moment with SEO. How are you seeing it at the moment? What's the current
Mhm.
status? Mm.
So the current state of play in SEO at the moment is probably one that's. I feel like we're at a pivotal moment in search. Like we've had updates before, like Penguin and Hummingbird, that have really refined how people search and the results that they get. And things that are happening at the moment, especially around AI. So obviously, people are using AI to create content, which, as we've seen with recent updates, has sort of brought that to pretty much a halt.
Mm.
Google can immediately spot that from a mile off, and they're really putting a dent in the progress that people have made. The other side of AI that we've seen as well is Google implementing AI straight into the search results. So they're testing at the moment something called Google SGE, which stands for Search Generative Experience. And basically, whenever you Google anything, especially more informational queries like questions, it will pull in an AI generated response, which is supposedly supposed to summarize the results below and give you an immediate answer. Um, from what we've seen from the tests, the answers aren't always correct. Depending on how you phrase the question, can definitely sway Google on the answer that it gives you. So it's definitely not 100% refined. I think there's still a long way to go. But it gives you a little bit of a glimpse into the future of what search results could look like in the future. Um,
Mm.
but obviously all the fundamentals still apply, the content experience, the technical hygiene, the authority, all of those things still apply. But I think we're seeing the search results landscape change in terms of how users can sort of interact with the results.
I've definitely seen that summary. That's interesting that you say that. And you talked about Reddit as well being quite a popular sort of source for SEO. How does that work?
Yeah, so what we've seen previously is third-party forum sites like Reddit, Quora, TripAdvisor. Historically, they haven't ranked too well. Like they would always, even if they had the most relevant content, they would always sit below any sort of content from an independent site. And more recently, Google's had a partnership with Reddit. And through some of the most recent algorithm updates, the helpful content update and the spam update, we've seen that Reddit has been very prominent within results. It's increased its visibility quite dramatically, where it's appearing for a lot of those more long tail queries, like people asking questions. And what we can garner from this is that Google is trying to showcase first party sort of advice. So, information from real people that have real answers. Whether that is the right thing to do is not necessarily clear as yet, because in some cases, in some niches, Reddit is a great example of, for example, cleaning, cooking, that sort of thing. If you just want like little hacks, it's great. But when you start getting towards the more what we call YMYL, so your money, your life content, which is heavily more supervised because it can have that dramatic effect on your life if it was sort of wrong information. Those are the queries that Reddit is appearing for as well. And we've seen that some of the results that are given aren't entirely accurate. They can be misleading. So just because they're increasing in visibility doesn't necessarily mean the results are getting more, we're seeing more quality results necessarily.
That quality, because it could be opinion versus fact, I guess, couldn't it, on some of those sites, depending on the topics that they're talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's using that. And what would you predict for the future? So, what do you see sort of coming up, perhaps in SEO? Any predictions that you have?
So yeah, definitely. In terms of predictions for the future, I mean, SEO now is completely different from what it was like 10 years ago. Black hat was definitely something that was used a lot. So people spamming keywords, spammy link practices. And we've definitely come a long way from there. And the one thing that's always been consistent in Google's messaging is that they want to put the user first. So as long as your website is putting the user first in terms of the content that you're providing is helpful, it shows up experience and authority. The user experience of the website is helpful. So in terms of, does it load quickly? Is it easy to navigate to the pages that you're looking for? And then also, does your brand appear online? So Google's not only looking at what you do online, it's looking at what you do offline and what it hears through third-party sources, so review sites, accreditations, how people talk about your brand on social media. It's looking at all these different elements to put this one picture together. So I think SEO is definitely going to get harder in terms of it's not a checklist anymore. It's definitely you've got to look at it from a holistic point of view from all your different channels. And also the other point of view is that with the recent updates, a lot of sites, especially sort of sites that rely on ads to generate income, have been hit by the most recent helpful content update. And essentially, I think we're working towards an industry where sites like that will have to rely on other channels as well. It's not only essentially you can't just rely on organic search anymore. We've seen with the most recent updates that it's just not a feasible form of income if your revenue is driven simply from one source. You need to be diversified from different channels.
Okay, no, that's interesting. Thank you. That's really good advice as
Mhm,
well. So, really good insight. So you mentioned how you got into SEO, and
mhm.
you worked for various different sort of agencies and things. But could you perhaps maybe talk about some of your own projects? So, and the benefits of doing sort of outside projects to your sort of main work.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So one of the first agencies that I worked at that was solely SEO, um, I made friends with someone that had a business, and essentially they wanted a bit of help with their website. And I was at that really early stage in my career where that was a good opportunity for me to take something independently, and put what I've learned and put it into this project. So if you I got the opportunity to freelance, and it definitely helped give me that confidence because it gave me that safe space outside of working on client sites where you can't necessarily test things, and you're following more of a strategy, whereas I was able to test the things that I wanted to test. I was able to put together a strategy that was specific for them, and really harness my skills. And it really improved my confidence since I knew the results that were driven from that site were solely from recommendations that I'd made. And it also gave me really good experience in terms of like how to build a client relationship, um, and just manage that end-to-end process. So that was definitely something that I'd recommend if you get the opportunity.
Mm.
Um, and then the other side of things as well, as opposed to freelance, is starting up your own website and having your own little project. That's something that I've done more recently. I was just Googling around and I found some search results that I was like, okay, there could be a gap in terms of where, there's not as much content around this. There's not many websites that cater towards this category. So I
Mm.
put together a strategy. I built a website, and I used a mixture of AI content and also my own content writing. Um, Unfortunately, my website was hit by the most recent helpful content update, which was to be expected, really. There was a lot of AI content in there. It was partly a test to see if, how that content would fare, and, how quickly you can ramp up content production. And I think the lesson that I learned from this, and that everyone else can learn from it too, is anything in SEO that is short term, if you see any short term results, you've got any quick wins, usually that doesn't correlate to long-term growth. Anything that's long-term takes time, it takes energy, it takes, real expertise that you can't sort of authenticate with AI. Um, so that's definitely a lesson that was learned throughout that project. So, and the thing is, you learn these lessons in a safer environment. Something that, if there's any repercussions of it, it's just on you. It's not on a business. It's not on any of your clients.
And
So
that's how
that's
you
something
learn
that.
new skills, isn't it? From trying different things and sort of playing around with the technology, and then you kind of, yeah, you get used to different methods, that kind of thing. It's a
Mhm.
good way to sort of test it out, like you say. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's interesting. Thank you. And you
Mhm.
spoke about imposter syndrome as something that you
Mhm.
tend to suffer with. And you've been looking for speaking opportunities, and you spoke at the Sheffield DM. So I
Yeah.
wondered if you could touch on that and how that affects you in the workplace as well.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. So I've been working in the industry around 7 years. And I think one of the things I've learned is that imposter syndrome affects everyone. It doesn't discriminate, like it does affect everyone. It affects proportionally more women than men. And the younger you are, the more likely you are to be affected as well. Um, and imposter syndrome is one of them things where you might experience it, but you can't put a name to it. You didn't necessarily know that that's what it was. So essentially, imposter syndrome is sort of like a behavioral phenomenon where you're more likely to doubt yourself in the workplace, especially when you're in a high achieving career.
Mm.
So I think that it's really prominent in the marketing industry because it combines the sort of creative elements. A lot of what we do is subjective and we apply it to best practice. But what I would do is not necessarily what someone else would do. And then it's also balanced with the fact that we're held to physical KPIs. So we're held to something physical based on something that's largely subjective. And I think sometimes that can get you question yourself, like, am I doing the right thing? Is this what's best for the client? Um,
Mm.
and there are some things that really help and have helped me in the past,
Mm.
sort of not necessarily conquer it, because it's one of them things where it doesn't necessarily go away, but just be able to sort of quieten that voice that's in your head just a little bit. So some of the things that I've found helpful is journaling, writing down your thoughts. That's definitely something that's helped me. It helps you get it out of your head and put it onto paper and just sort of separate from it.
Mm.
The other thing is putting together a folder of praise. So if you've got Google Drive or anything like that, when you get any sort of praise at work, a client said something really nice and they're giving you some good feedback, your manager's giving you some good feedback on a project, screenshot it, put it in a folder. That way, whenever you're feeling a bit down and you're doubting yourself, you can go into that folder and you can read all the times that you've done well and people have responded to that. And then the last thing that I'd say is just having a good community of like-minded people. One of the things that's really helped me is just having supportive people in the workplace, whether that's friends from my personal life or friends in the business that I'm currently working at. They can sort of help you sort of like get back on track and
Mm.
help you rationalize some of those thoughts. Sometimes it's helpful just to have a conversation and just say things out loud.
Yeah, no, that's some really good constructive, advice there. Because, like you say, it's likely to affect a lot of people. It's having those
Mhm.
strategies, isn't it, to manage it, so
Yeah.
you can be at your best in your role and everything. So, thank you for touching on that. And so, you're currently working for a company called Herd. I
Yeah.
wondered if you've been there. Is it 6 months, something like that?
Yes.
In your
Yeah, I've just
probation?
passed my probation.
Congrats,
Thank you.
congratulations. Could you maybe talk to us a little bit about the company and the experience that you had when it came to obviously finding the role, the recruitment, the interviewing, and why you chose to work for them as a business as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I was looking for a new role and I was speaking to various recruiters and they were listing off companies. And I think Herd was mentioned within one of the lists from the recruiters. But at the time it was just a company on a list. Like I didn't really know what the company was. I didn't know what they did. Um, and later on, actually through a friend of the company that I was currently working at, they recommended me for a role at Herd. So someone at Herd reached out on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, we've got this role. Someone's recommended you. Would you want to interview?" And at the time, I was looking for a new role, so I was like, "Absolutely. Let's jump on a call and let's do it." And like most interviews start, it was an informal chat. So, it was an opportunity for them to get to know me, but also it was an opportunity for me to get to know them and sort of see whether, what I wanted aligned with what they wanted, where they're going, um, where the company's going, what their vision is, and also at the same time, like where I want to go and where I see myself. So that was a great opportunity to really get to know Herd as a company. And immediately from the get go, I was like, you know what, these are solid people. And you
Mm,
know what, they've got some good brands under their belt, and I could get some good experience from this company.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so the next stage of the interview was more of a sort of formal questions, and we also got to do a task as well. So they had a website and they were basically like, go and find all the issues, how you prioritize it, and essentially pitch us, how you would go about auditing the website and how you found the issues and the opportunities. And a little tip that I do in all of my interviews, and I've got consistently good feedback about it,
Mm,
is try and match the branding. If you're asked to do any sort of task or presentation, try and match the branding to the company. It
okay.
really shows that you've done your research. It shows that you're listening. It shows that you're interested, and you've taken that time to personalize your deck. And for example, if you're interviewing for 3 different roles and you've used the same deck for all 3 companies, it really makes a difference when you tailor what you're doing to that company. And when I did the presentation for Herd, they asked me if I had access to their internal documents, and I was like, no, I just saw it on Instagram.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, it had all their branding on your slides, which looks really smart, like you say, and goes the extra mile and shows that you've made the effort. So that must have gone down really well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, great advice for people interviewing. Thank you. No, that sounds great, and it sounds like you're settling in really, really nicely. So great opportunity. We talked about AI, so I just wondered if you could perhaps elaborate on the use of AI and some of those do's maybe, and what but the don'ts and what not to do as well.
Mhm. Definitely. So as I touched on before, I created my own website and used AI in part amongst the human side of editing and content creation to create my website. And like so many other people, any sort of like AI heavily used content has just been sort of stricken by some of the recent helpful content updates and spam updates that Google have released. So they are very much aware of when AI replaces human experience. And I think that's one thing to really base something off when you're looking at a task and you're going, should I use AI? Is it something that needs human intervention? Is it something that AI can provide that real value? And I think with content creation, it can't. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
if it's heavily edited and you're able to bring someone in that does have that experience and that authority, it can help. But essentially, we can't substitute for real experience and real people in the industry. Um, so content creation, I would say, on the side of caution. Just know that if you do use it, especially on your website, it's not going to yield long-term results. Whether you want to use that on social media is another story, because it won't necessarily affect that since it's not getting indexed and Google's not looking at that necessarily. Um, I think where it really does shine is these automated repetitive tasks, where it's great if a human does it, but AI can do it just as well with the right instruction. So a lot of technical tasks, or sort of like data cleansing, or like I use it quite a lot to create like either regex formulas or formulas in Excel. If they're complicated and you need to pull in like several different formulas into one, instead of sitting there and trying to craft it myself, I just ask, AI, can you create this formula that pulls in this cell and deletes this part and adds this in? Um, and 8 times out of 10, it's usually correct. Sometimes it needs a bit of tweaking, and sometimes it's run off on its own somewhere. But if you sort of give the right prompt, and if it's wrong, tell it it's wrong and where it can improve. Usually it gets there.
That's good. What is that tool that you use for the Excel? What is it? A certain AI tool that you use for that for the formulas?
Yes. Yeah, so there's two that I sort of flip between. The most helpful, I would say, is ChatGPT 4. And then also the other one is Google Gemini. I found that ChatGPT 4 is more helpful with Excel formulas, and especially regex as well.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. So it's a no for content, especially on website, but maybe for social media, it's fine. And for ideas, for sort of creative ideas, you can sort of like get sort of like ideas and things from there. It's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
good stuff. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And your goal, Brad, is to be speaking at more events and things, isn't it? So you're looking for opportunities to do that. Could you explain a little bit about that and what you're trying to find if there are people that perhaps have an event coming up that you could get involved in?
Yeah, definitely. So one of my most recent speaking opportunities, as you mentioned before, was speaking at Sheffield DM. Sorry, they're a local marketing conference, and what I really like about them is they give priority to new speakers, people who really want to get up there and see if it's right for them. And that's how I got the opportunity. I was a new speaker. I'd not done any sort of public speaking in person, at least in my history.
Mm.
Um, and imposter syndrome was something that was really close to my heart, and it's something that I was really passionate about. So I think that topic especially shone through because it was something that I've lived and something that I can relay to other people. And essentially, what I want to do speaking at other events is choose a topic that I'm passionate about I'm passionate about like finding problem solving techniques within, technical. I'm really interested in content strategy, anything that's outside of the box in terms of, search results and the sort of changes that we're seeing. So essentially, I'm looking to find events that sort of line up with the sort of talks that I want to talk about, and definitely, what their goal is and what they're working towards. I want to line up with myself as well. So what I'm doing at the moment is just making a list of all the different events that I could talk at. Looking at what events, what topics do they cover? Is it SEO? Is it more general marketing? Is it web development? Is it a bit more techy? And just sitting down and ideating some topic ideas for each of the events, and just really understanding where I can fit and what value I can provide to these events. And then the other side of it is if there are any events that are looking for speaking opportunities, I'm more than happy for people to reach out to me and ask. It's something that is on my goal for this year to really improve my confidence speaking. And the only way to do that really is just to put yourself out there.
Yeah, to do it. Good on
Yeah, and
you.
I really enjoyed it the last time I did it. So I think I've caught the bug a little bit. So I just want to sort
Nice.
of
Yeah, have more of that. Or if anyone that's listening today can think of Bradley's involvement in an event that they're doing, please do reach out to him. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to get involved. So, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining the podcast today, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, Brad. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.